Hey and welcome to the channel. My name is Hamza and I make WordPress videos on this channel. Just like you have read the title and thumbnail on this video, you are quite curious what you can actually build in Gutenberg just like you do in Elementor. Let me just show you. On this page, it was fully built using Gutenberg. And at first glance, I thought this was an Elementor website because I never thought that I can build sections or containers like this with these kind of stylings in Gutenberg, until when I got a project where a client specifically wanted me to build the homepage using Gutenberg. Now, I have to be very honest that as an Elementor user, I had a very bad perception about Gutenberg and how far I could actually go when it comes to building with Gutenberg. Until recently when I actually got this project, and then I decided to actually give it a shot. So in this video specifically, I'm going to be taking you through how we can use Gutenberg. Specifically, we will be using the Spectra builder. Now inside the dashboard of our WordPress website, I'm going to first take you to plugins, just to show you that I have the Spectra builder, which is made by the people from Astra. And yes, speaking of Astra, when I go to themes, you see that I have the Astra theme installed. The other thing you'll notice as I'm making this video, you'll see that all my buttons are styled up and I have these default colors and typography settings. And that is made possible by the use of the new Astra style guide. So when I come here to customize, and right here at the top, you see I have a style guide, and right over here is the style guide for the entire website. Now let's go back here to our pages. And I'm going to open a new blank page. So I'm going to say new page. I'll just name this as Spectra Builder. If you don't want the heading to actually appear on your pages, you just click over here on the I. Then I'm going to save as a draft. To get started, we are going to first of all come over here and then add a container. So maybe you're wondering how comes we have containers in Spectra. Just like I've told you, Spectra is like the Elementor but for Gutenberg. And the good thing is that it doesn't add bloat to the Gutenberg editor, and that means that your websites will be faster. If we come back here to the dashboard and we go to Spectra and we go to settings, so you can go ahead and look into the settings, but everything right over here looks fine. But specifically, if you go to the blocks settings, just like you see here, we have different blocks that we can use on our Gutenberg website, including a container block, a container section, no, a container actually, and lots of other blocks right over here. We have the Spectra blocks, including a container, a heading, image, and all that stuff. Now to get started, we're going to add a blank container. We're going to add a heading widget. So this heading widget, I'm going to come over here to the navigator. I call it a navigator, but here they call it document overview. Now I've moved this heading into the container. Now right over here in our heading, just like you can see here, we have a heading. So we're going to add this subheading and then actually the main heading, which is services. So here I'll say our services. And then I'm going to come here to the subheading option right over here. Just make sure that this sidebar widget is open, not collapsed. And that's how you'll be able to get the settings for that specific widget that you added. And here I'm going to come to subheading and I enable that. And I'm going to say it's going to be above the heading. And right over here, I'll say explore our services. I'll make sure that everything is aligned in the center. And that's it. So we are done with the first widget into our container or our section block. The names are always confusing me, but I guess you get it. Now, the other thing we are going to have to build is adding our cards right inside this container. But first, we are going to come back here to our container. And we are going to come to the style option, and under spacing, we are going to add a row gap of 60 pixels. And then padding top and bottom, we are going to add padding at the top 100 pixels and then bottom 100 pixels, and right is going to be 40 and left is going to be a 40. We don't need this paragraph. Now back here, we are going to say add another container. Alternatively, I can just come right over here inside the container itself and I say add a new container. And this container is going to hold our other containers, or the container that is going to hold the cards in this case. So, and right inside this container, we are going to add other containers. So you see now we have another container right inside that container, and I'll duplicate this container 3 times or 2 other times. So duplicate and duplicate. Now, the beauty about the container model is that it gives you the flex and grid options also in Spectra, just like it works in Elementor. So I'll come here and select the container and come here to general settings, and I'm going to come to layout, and I'm going to change the direction to row direction. Now, inside our containers, these ones, which are actually going to be our cards, we are going to add the features. Actually, we're going to add now our content. That will include the image, the title, and the buttons right over there. So back here, we're going to come inside this container. We're going to make sure that we add the image widget. Just make sure the image widget is from Spectra. It's always in blue. So there we've added an image, and I'm going to upload the image from the library. So I'll start with this bank, select the image, and we want this image to be in a specific size. So right over here on image size, custom width is going to be 375 pixels, and height is going to be 360. But before we go any further, we are going to select our main container, this over here that is holding the 3 cards, and we are going to add some styling to this container. We're going to come over here to the style and spacing, and we are going to add a column gap of 60 pixels. So we have the gap between the different containers. I think actually a 60 is a bit much for the gap, so I'm going to have it again selected, and I'll come back to style, spacing, column gap. I'll make it a 40 pixel column gap, and that's it. So back here to our container, this one, or our card, we're going to come here to general settings, and the custom width is going to be 33% because we want all these containers to have the same size all the way through. We are going to rename these containers just to put out the confusion of where I'm clicking and why. So I'm going to name this first container as card 1. So right click and rename. Then I'm going to come here to the container that is holding the cards, and I will just rename this as cards. Then the main container, I will just rename this as services. The next thing we are going to add right over here is another container right into the first card, because in this card we are going to have our info box that is going to show the heading and also the button and a little bit of some text. So I'm going to come right over here. I can click here and say add a block, or I can come over here, add another block, and then I can add the container block. And now you see that we have a new container right inside this card. So we are going to add an info box block. This info box shouldn't have an icon. We just want to have the heading, which is going to be, let me see, guided tours, and then this content. So the info box title, we are going to change this to guided tours. Right over here, I'm going to select this text and just delete it and add the text that I want. So that's the text that I want to appear. And then right still with this info box selected, and I love this info box widget, or in this case it's a block, because it gives you many more other possibilities. You can add a heading, a subheading, and then you can also add a call to action on the info box. Back here to our settings area, now we were under content, but now we are going to go straight to the call to action, and the type of the call to action is going to be a text. I can enable a button, and you see there is a button, but I want to use text in this case, and I don't want to inherit from the theme, and I don't want to show an icon. and you see we have read more. You can change this text to, let me say, maybe say click here, but I want to leave it as read more. If you want to change the title tag for your heading, just click over there and come here to general, and you can choose whether H1, H2, H3, H4, whatever you want. And then for our call to action, we have to make sure that it actually takes someone somewhere. So back here to the call to action, just make sure that you insert a link to the page where you want your website visitors to be redirected. Now for our container that is holding the info box, just to bring up here the document overview, I mean this container right over here. With it selected, we're going to come over here to general settings, and we want to make it a custom width of just 90%. General settings, and for justify, we want it to be flex start in this case. Now we come here to style, come to background, we want to give it a background color of white. So this should be one of our theme colors that we already set up. And then for spacing, we're going to give it a padding of 30 pixels, and we want to add a margin of 100 pixels at the top so that we can pull that container to sit on the image or partly on the image. With our container selected, unlink the margin values, add 100 and a negative. Now let's add all the other fancy things like the rounded radius on the container. So with it selected, we are going to come here to the border. We're going to make it a solid border. First of all, we are going to change the border color right over here, give it our brown color, and we're going to make it only be at the bottom of only 2 pixels. Just like this, and that is what you are seeing right over there. Now here on the border radius, we are going to unlink the values, and top, because we want to have a rounded radius over here, 20 pixels, just like that. Now let's click here on our image. With the image selected, come to style, we are going to come here to the radius, unlink. So here it's going to be at the top 250 pixels. And on the right hand side, it will be 25 pixels, bottom will be 25 pixels, and then on the left hand side will be 250 pixels. And you see how now our layout has come to life. We have now something similar to what we want to create. Now, these are layouts that you would initially think that they are built in Elementor, and I'm doing it here in Gutenberg and it doesn't feel real. Anyway, now let's look into the other responsive features. First of all, I don't need this paragraph that is showing up over here. I think that is always coming up when I click anywhere by mistake. So I'll come here to the tablet. I'll come over here and select my image in the first container. And I'm going to change this border radius to 200 and 200. And I have to change the size of the image. I'll make this to be 300. And 250. Now we select our container holding the info box widget, and we are going to come here to padding, and I'll make it a 20 all the way through. Save a draft. Now let's go straight to the mobile device. Already a bit neat, but we can do some more work in this case. I'll come over here, select my image, come to image size, and width will be 600, and I'll make it to be 250 for the height. I think 350 would look better, something like that. Come to our info box. We're going to change the padding for this case. I'll select that and come to padding. I'll make it a 24 all the way through. And for the margin, we're going to unlink and just make this to be an 80 negative. Okay, I think this looks fine for now on the mobile as well. So if I go back now here to my desktop, we are going to duplicate this container to build up our other cards. Come here to container one, I'll collapse this and I'll just say duplicate and duplicate once again and delete the other empty ones, this, and delete this as well. I'll rename this as container 2. Name, and then rename this as container 3. starting with container 2. We want to have culture shows with a different image and different text. Back here, we want to have culture shows, add our text. Don't forget to change the link or the destination link right over here. That's very, very important. Select the image, and then we're going to say replace this image from the media library. Come over here, we select our image that will show up right over there. Now let's change the padding or the styling for these containers. With our image selected, come to style. So this will be 250 and 250. So the other is going to be 0 and 0. For mobile, we have to change the image size. Come to the image size. It's going to be 300 and 250. That's actually a custom size. And now for our container that is holding our info box, we will give it a border radius and a border. So the border radius is going to be a 20 top and 20 on the right hand side, so that we have our rounded radius on both sides. Now let's go to the mobile. Well, for the mobile, it doesn't seem like I have to do anything at the moment. All looks good. I now have to go back to the desktop. Let's work on our other card, which is the last one. So this is going to be eco-friendly visits. This, and then we have our text or link. Don't forget to change the destination right over here of this link. Select our image, and on the right we are going to give it a padding of 250, and at the bottom 250, and top will be 25 and left will be 25. I'm still undecided whether to add a border radius on this other edge and this other edge, but I think it will look much better if I add border radius on both the edges, so something like that. Let's look at our card on the tablet. Tablet looks okay, but we have not changed the image. So back to desktop, select our image, come over here, say replace the image, open the library, select the image, and there we go. If we look at this image on the tablet, so we want it to be 300 and 250, so 300 and 250 for the height. There we go. Now let's look at this on the mobile. Mobile looks nice and neat. It looks like I don't have to do anything at the moment. And save. We can also publish, but let me just go and say a preview, and boom, there we have our cards built up in Spectra. I don't know what questions you have right now. I don't know, maybe you want to check that the links are working. Let's look at the responsive settings of our container. Here we go. There are our cards that we built up on a mobile device. Yeah, there is something that we have to do. I'm going to select the container that is holding the cards. So the cards container. And on the mobile, you see that there is no space from one card to the other. That's because we have not added a row spacing between these cards on the mobile. I'm going to come here to style of that container. Then we come to spacing. We're going to say row spacing of 40 pixels. And you see we now have that space. Also, I think we can reduce the padding values on this container on the mobile, which is the main container. So I'm going to come here, unlink the values, and I put a 20. So, and I'll put a 20 right and 20 on the left. And also padding at the bottom, we can give it a 40 right below here. So a 40. Just like that. So now we can say save a draft. If we come back here to our responsive mode, here we have our info box. I don't know why I forgot to change this, so I'll go back and change that real quick. I remember changing it. So guided tours, save a draft. Okay, guided tours. Now let's preview this on our mobile device. The padding here at the top is off. We can fix that real quick now. like here, container, padding at the top, a 40. So the draft, reload our preview. Beautiful. So we have our top. You can now look at our cards looking nice and beautiful. And that's how you can build cool, nice looking layouts in Gutenberg using Spectra. Now, if you are interested in videos like this, creating some Elementor-like sections right within Gutenberg, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel because I'm going to be making some more videos just like this.